What a weekend. We break down what happened in Aurora during the protests. A government chart says there are 0 patients in Denver hospitals with COVID-19. We make something out of nothing because there's something behind that nothing number. And we look at a unique radio station in Colorado where music is a vehicle for voices to be heard. On that note, here we go. Next. The fate of Denver's free COVID-19 testing site is in limbo. Though Denver Mayor Michael Hancock tells us it will likely remain open even though the funding is gone. The mayor delivered his State of the City address today. He encouraged support of a city sales tax increase to provide more services for those people experiencing homelessness. He also warned about a $227 million cut in the budget. Our Marshall Zellinger asked him about those cuts and then about the COVID-19 testing site.
Our parks, for example, may not be mowed as well or as much. We may not empty the trash at the parks as much. Library hours being cut, recreation center hours being reduced as well. A lot of the same things that we had to do to get through the Great Recession.
The Pepsi Center testing site is out of funding at the end of the week. Will we have
It's out of funding as of right now, but I got to tell you, we continue to work with the state. I talked to the governor today. We're both very, very committed to finding a way to keep it going. There are a lot of little details that have to be managed. This was not easy to set up, and it's not going to be easy to kind of manage across city and state functions as well, but they are working hard to make that happen.
Will it be open tomorrow if it's out of funding?
It'll be open tomorrow.
Will it be open next week?
My goal is for it to be open next week. You know what? The state has committed to lean in and to help fund it. The question is a lot about transition and how we manage it going forward.
Are we being honest with parents that it's just a 2-week delay for schools? And are we being honest with sports fans that we're going to have fans in the stands at some point this year?
I think that the situation with DPS is still evolving. Right now we're looking at a 2-week delay. We can probably expect that at some point there'll be another modification to that, or at least a new plan that is released with regards to some hybrid system or setup. I'm only assuming that. With regards to fans, I want nothing more than for the Rockies to continue playing, the Nuggets to make it through this playoff situation, or bubble in Orlando, and see our Broncos play. They're starting their opening game in September. But that's, quite frankly, even though as a fan it's hard for me to hear it and say it, it's not as much a priority as it is for us to keep everyone safe.
Would you go to a game?
Yeah, I would. If I was secured, if I felt safe in the social distancing aspect of it, I would wear my mask, but I would go. Let's talk about that for a minute. If you think about the Denver Broncos, for example, I think the NFL is one of the more unique leagues we have in that they can probably exist without fans in the stand this season because of their TV contracts. But the reality is the stadiums are so large that they can probably have a third or half of their fans there and keep people socially distant.
And you can see more of Marshall's interview with Mayor Michael Hancock on the next YouTube channel. Why he's asking for Denver taxpayers to pay more when the city has to cut money, and the significance of calling racism a public health crisis, and what he thinks about a jailbreak during his new sheriff's first day on the job this past week. 250 people in Colorado are currently hospitalized with COVID-19. That's up a little from the day before. 24 patients have been discharged or transferred in the last 24 hours. So we've been hearing a lot about COVID-19 spikes all over the country. Governor Jared Polis has toughened up rules on bars. Pro sports is being questioned after a number of baseball players tested positive over the weekend. Meanwhile, a piece of data that seems to show there are 0 hospitalizations in Denver County caught our attention. 0. Very often, there's something more about nothing. It perhaps sounds like a win against COVID-19 in Denver. This Denver County chart indicates 0 people in the hospital for COVID-19 as of July 25th, this past Saturday. That sounds awesome. You can't blame people for sharing that chart and celebrating the news. Yet, on that same day, Dr. Camilla Sasson tweeted she has seen a rise in presumed cases locally. So what's going on? Of course, taking a closer look at the print says the numbers reflect completed case investigations. Denver Health told us there are actually 17 people currently in their hospital with COVID-19 today. Perhaps the chart needs a better title to clear things up. maybe let's put the word new right here. This chart is not current, but only reflects new county COVID-19 hospitalizations that have been confirmed. Maybe we are making something about nothing, but we have to when zero isn't really zero. And some computer server issues mean we will not be getting the numbers for how many the tests the state processed yesterday. We are tracking the positivity rate in Colorado, which went over that 5% threshold that we want to stay under yesterday. The 7-day average is now at more than 4.6%. That number has been steadily rising this month. And may I make a recommendation? This is where we tell you about something, anything that isn't ours, but is definitely worth your time. It's a common question that has popped up in the last few months of the pandemic. Why is Colorado so behind on COVID-19 testing? You have to check out an excellent investigative piece by our friends over at Colorado Public Radio. They find the problem actually may have started back in March, before the virus really took hold in Colorado. The Colorado Department of Health and Environment began losing key members of its leadership team before, during, and after the first cases appeared here. We will post part 1 of CPR's 2-part series to the next Facebook page. Douglas County Schools is opting for the hybrid model this coming school year. The plan here, kids will rotate time in school and time at home for remote learning. 2 days in person, and then they'll do 2 days or 3 days at home. So is this going to work? Is this going to be effective? Nine Health expert Dr. Pyle Coley says there's actually a handful of reasons why this actually may be a good compromise.
There's actually fewer contacts. So you're actually, coming into contact with fewer people. The second is there's decreased frequency of contact. So if you were contacting the same number of people 5 days a week, that would confer higher risk than contacting those people only 2 or 3 days a week. The third is it actually makes contact tracing a lot easier because you've got small groups at any given time that are interacting with one another. So if there is an outbreak, it makes it a little easier to trace it back. And then the final reason is actually the most practical reason, which is that it makes social distancing within schools much more possible on a pragmatic level, because at any given time you have fewer kids in the school, so it's much easier to space the desks 6 feet apart.
The model isn't perfect, obviously, especially for teachers who have to put together 2 different classroom plans, or for parents who will have to figure out what to do for daycare 3 times a week. Dr. Coley says she anticipates this being only temporary until the virus spread is reduced enough that students could go back to their schools full time. She says the biggest indicator from a health standpoint that schools could go back to 5 days a week in person would be a 14-day steady decline in cases. As a news organization, we have the immense responsibility to present what happens during a protest with accuracy and fairness. If we decide to focus on a few bad people, that can certainly eclipse the message of the actual protest. But we also cannot ignore damage to public property and violence that hurts people. So let's try to break down what happened in Aurora this past weekend, starting with the whole point of the protests. Hundreds of peaceful protesters took to their streets. Their message, justice for Elijah McClain and reform within the Aurora Police Department. Cops connected to his death remain employed, and protesters have been calling for their termination. Yet it seems impossible to hold a peaceful protest these days without agitators who intermingle with the crowd to cause problems. Who they are is unknown, like this guy right here, dressed in all black, swinging the hammer. These guys damaged a lot of windows at the municipal center. I've covered these protests, and I've seen peaceful people try and stop this behavior. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it just doesn't. And then there's the driver of the Jeep who drove through the crowd claiming he was scared. Police let him go, but they say there is an investigation. Protesters point out Elijah McClain was arrested simply for being black and walking down the street. Then there's also a man who went to the protest with a gun and is suspected of shooting 2 fellow protesters as the Jeep drove through. Sorting all of this out with the proper context and full facts isn't simple. Our newscast isn't a courtroom either, so we have to be careful about allegations and remembering You are innocent until proven guilty. Which brings us back to Elijah McClain. Elijah McClain wasn't guilty of anything. He was just a young black man walking home after buying iced tea when he was approached by cops who immediately put their hands on him. An EMT pumped him up with ketamine as he declared his innocence. Elijah died days later. There are several investigations into his death on the city, state, and federal levels. And the anniversary of Elijah's death is just next month. No one should ever disparage kids with special needs, but when it's a teacher, well, that quickly caught the public's attention. It's the first of its kind in Colorado and is one of the first in the nation.
When I was formulating and putting together the staff, I thought about things like whose voices are not heard as often.
The People's Station for hip hop and R&B, coming along for the drop next. And welcome back. A Westminster kindergarten teacher faces likely dismissal from his job after allegedly making horrible remarks about special needs students on Facebook. Viewers have flooded our emails with screen grabs of this comment from Peter Mandel. In it, he basically says we don't need to worry about special needs kids during the pandemic because they still will have special needs when all of this is over. He said it in a lot more crudely manner than that. Mandel is a kindergarten teacher at Skyline Vista and has worked for the district for more than 20 years, but that's likely going to change here pretty soon. The school announced today it's moving forward with plans to fire him.
Hope you're having a great Monday, everyone. It was beautiful for the Front Range and a few degrees below average today. We only hit into the mid to upper 80s, so that would put us a little bit below where we should be, but I don't know about you guys, I am enjoying the break. Now, we did see quite a bit of storm activity up in the high country today. That will continue overnight with some slow-moving thunderstorms, so we are still concerned about flash flooding because we do have quite a bit of moisture expected out of these storms, so flash flood watch in effect through tonight for a good chunk of southern Colorado. Overnight down into the low 60s, and then tomorrow mid 80s, another chance for storms, but thankfully nothing severe expected. And then we are back up to 90 degrees on Wednesday.
Did you know Denver has an all-black radio station?
We are on this mission to have a Colorado that is seen and heard. Voices matter.
The station, unique to Colorado and America as a whole, is giving a microphone to voices that need to be heard. Next. They make me really bald in that open. I don't know why. Maybe I do know why. Music can be seen as one of the equalizers in life. Many people have had a musical experience that has helped them connect with others no matter their race. That is the mission of a new digital radio station in Denver called The Drop, which is operated by an all-black staff. Our Byron Reed has their story.
It was so critical that we got our start here.
For some people, the biggest motivation for choosing a career
I had some really amazing mentors.
comes with some guidance from others.
And so now I feel a very strong obligation and desire to tutor the next round of program directors and on-air personalities and future GMs.
Nikki Swarn is the program director for a digital radio station called The Drop, a commercial-free R&B and hip-hop station that's focused on the needs of the community. The music and information is delivered by an all-black staff, the first of its kind in Colorado, and one of the first in the nation.
It's called Urban Alternative for Public Media, and this was an opportunity to do this relationship with people that are not reflected necessarily in traditional media.
The station was launched by Rocky Mountain Public Media last year, targeting a younger, multicultural audience.
When I was formulating and putting together the staff, I thought about things like whose voices are not heard as often.
The Drop is a listener-driven station that features a regular rotation of Colorado independent artists. Swarn says the mission is to create a Colorado community that's seen and heard.
There's a lot of great, hard conversations that are taking place, and I feel like The Drop is a place to be a conduit for some of these difficult conversations.
Swarn says it's important that the station is a reflection of the community of color as a way of giving back to the next generation.
Only 11% of program directors are women, and even a smaller percentage are women of color. So I have that mantle on my shoulder as well to teach.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
The Drop is the sister station of KUVO Jazz and was recently voted the best new radio station by The Westward. Bringing the country to your work site is the most Colorado thing we saw today. That and your feedback next. And welcome back. The most Colorado thing we saw today is the perfect campsite breakfast without that pesky sleeping bag and a tent thing. Our next viewer sent us a couple of photos as a crew was installing a new deck at their home in Highlands Ranch. One of the workers pulled out the old portable backpacking stove with the really nice cast iron skillet. Looks like it's eggs for breakfast there. If you see something that is so Colorado, you just have to share it with us. Email a picture of it to next@9news.com or tag us on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext. And let's go ahead and check in on a bit of breaking news here at this moment. We're going to go live to Sky 9. We understand 2 officers have been hurt in a shooting tonight in Green Valley Ranch. The shooting happened on Argonne Street near Tower Road and Green Valley Ranch Boulevard. Aurora police just tweeted that 2 of their officers have been shot and were taken to the hospital. We have a crew working this story, and we plan to bring you more at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock tonight. Again, 2 officers have been shot in this area of Denver and far northeast Denver at Green Valley Ranch. It's unknown what the officers' conditions at this moment are, but we do have crews monitoring this news story. So let's go ahead and talk about some next feedback here. All right, I'm going to open up my email that our producer sent me for our next feedback. This is always a stressful time because it's like, who's going to say different things? Liking the suit, man. All right, that's a good comment. Where is Kyle Clark? I think we're going to hear that for a long, long time. Kyle actually is going to be coming back in early August. He's taking some time off to spend more time with his family, and you can't blame him for that, right? And then the next comment we have is, Next is a great show. I appreciate all the hard work you all put in to make it so. And that is from Ben. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for the comments, everyone. Keep them coming. You can tag us by tagging the hashtag HeyNext. Thanks for watching. I will be back here tomorrow night. I will see you then.